anything you're doing with AI should be aligned to your company's goals and to your organization's risk tolerance. I would say in the moment that we're in right now, that's even more important today. Business leaders really need to better understand both what AI can do for them, but also its limitations.
Welcome to AI to Z. Hosted by Airswift's Chief Revenue Officer, Anna Frazzetto, we delve into artificial intelligence, health tech, and more. Tune in and journey with us into the future.
Hello, today I have the opportunity to talk to Meghan Anzelc. She is a board member and a global AI and data leader. She has both deep technical expertise with knowledge of complex techniques and tools, and is a savvy business leader with the ability to influence and lead up and down and across organizations. She categorizes herself as a T-shaped leader with 20 years of deep expertise in data and AI and a broad experience working cross-functionally to drive value. She has a PhD in particle physics, starting her career studying the universe nanoseconds after the Big Bang. Today, she helps organizations understand how AI is shaping the future, crafting strategies to take advantage of the possibilities AI provides, both in a responsible and an ethical fashion. So thank you, Meghan.
Thank you, Anna. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. Meghan, I figured, why don't we just jump right in? As you're leading the charge in data analytics and, of course, AI impact, what should our audience know about the current state of AI?
Yeah, there's a few things here. So first off, AI is not a fad and it's not new. And it's actually been used the longest in regulated industries. So last year in 2023, Visa was speaking publicly that it was their 30th year of using machine learning to identify fraud. And AT&T has spoken actually a long time ago about the many decades that they have been using techniques like this. In the insurance industry, it's been used for 30 or 40 years. And when I started my career in the insurance industry, AI had already been used for about a decade. So that should really give reassurance and comfort to people. It shows that highly regulated companies have found ways to use AI responsibly in their organizations that add to their top and bottom lines. So in terms of what is new, there's three things. So one is the level of access and availability and usability, right? Pretty much everyone has access to AI tools, and there are many tools today make it very easy to use them. So that's new. Second, the risks of AI themselves are not new. Things like privacy concerns, intellectual property leakage, or misuse, those risks have always existed. But what is new is the scale and speed of AI's evolution is magnifying some of those risks, and sometimes in ways that we're not always prepared for. And then third, generative AI, which is the creation of new content from existing content, has really exploded since the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022. And generative AI capabilities are evolving very quickly. So we're now at a point where you can do real-time voice cloning. You can generate a final draft of a pitch deck in seconds. And you can convincingly replace someone in a video with very minimal effort to do that. So that's significantly a different kind of current state than where we were even a year ago or even 6 months ago. So that current state really, one, you no longer need specialized tools and skills to use AI to generate value, right? It really has democratized these capabilities for people. And then second, it's not static. So this is a very quickly evolving and maturing space, both in terms of the AI capabilities themselves, as well as how we regulate and govern their use. So those are the two things I'd say about the current state, right? Is that kind of democratization, that it's available to everybody, and that it's a quickly evolving space. And so you kind of need to continually stay on top of what's happening and changing in capabilities and in their governance and regulation.
So, Megan, you bring up an interesting point. So, the message to organizations that are just getting started, what's the best way to start using AI? I think that's part of the challenge because there's so much buzz out there, and there's so much platforms and applications and environments that are claiming that they have the latest and greatest as far as AI utilization. So how do you balance the risk with the opportunity?
Yeah. So first off, I think it's critical that organizations really start with their business strategy. So anything you're doing with AI should be aligned to your company's goals and to your organization's risk tolerance. So I see a lot of executives who get really excited by the technology, right? Like you said, there's a lot of buzz about this. And so I often hear things like, we need to be using generative AI. And so they're searching for a problem in which to put a solution they've already determined, right? They're trying to say, how can I make generative AI the solution to some problem? Rather than starting that other way around and really starting with the problems you're trying to solve and then go from there. So that's first, is start with what you're trying to solve. Second, you need that cross-functional expertise in the room to help you really balance that opportunity and risk. So you need to bring together not just your business leaders, but also your legal and compliance folks, your information security folks, and so on, to help you think through the implications and really evaluate what are the best opportunities to pursue. And of course, you need deep AI experts to help lead those conversations. And there's a lot of subtleties in AI in sort of both the risks and the benefits. And so you really do need some level of deep expertise involved in those conversations. I've seen a number of organizations who sort of skip that, who say, well, because of the democratization, there's all sorts of tools, we can just start using them. But they don't fully understand some of the nuance. And so they're missing in some way, sometimes on the benefit side and sometimes on the risk side. So that cross-functional kind of group to bring together to help do that balancing of risk and opportunity, I think, is really critical. And then additionally, organizations should be making sure that they actually have the appropriate governance and guardrails in place today for how AI is being used in their organizations right now. So there's a number of studies from even from a year ago showing that about half of employees are using AI in their jobs in some capacity. But only a small fraction of companies have any sort of AI governance policies or guardrails in place. And so they're putting their organizations at undue risk, in my opinion. So I really encourage organizations who haven't yet started tackling AI to really start with oversight of how it's being used in their organizations today. And that doesn't need to be heavy-handed. It can be still very light. So it doesn't need to be a huge initiative or very cumbersome, but just some guardrails around what people can and should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing with the tools available to them. There's a number of resources out there for how to think about AI governance. So one I was involved in was with the Athena Alliance, and they launched their AI governance playbook in March. And that was an initiative that I co-authored and co-chaired with a number of other women. It's available on the website to download, and it's really meant to be a very practical framework to help organizations think about incorporating AI into their governance and decision-making processes. But that's just one resource. There are many other resources available that can really help you get started in that conversation. So those are really the things that I would encourage organizations to do to get started, right? One is start with the problems you're trying to solve. Two, make sure you bring that cross-functional expertise together to help you understand benefit and risk and identify the right opportunities. And then third, really make sure that you have that appropriate oversight and governance in place, even for right now today, how folks are using AI in your organization.
Well, Megan, that's perfect. You really have laid out such a great playbook, so to speak, as far as how to approach it. Now, let's take the conversation a little bit for audience members that have been working in data science and AI, and what advice would you give them? They're a little bit more advanced than the previous members that we were talking about that were just starting from ground zero.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've always encouraged folks operating in those technical roles, right, in data science and AI spaces, to really make sure that they're balancing their technical skills with their soft skills, particularly the communication and influencing skills. And I would say in the moment that we're in right now, that's even more important today. Business leaders really need to better understand both what AI can do for them, but also its limitations, right? AI is a solution and a tool set. It's not the correct solution or the right solution for many problems, right? It's overkill in a lot of cases. And so business leaders need help from the people who have that deep expertise to really understand both where AI can and should be used as a solution, and then where you can do something much more simple and straightforward, right? Where you don't need sort of an overly complex and sophisticated solution involving AI. The other piece, I think, is that for folks working in AI, they need to continue to ramp up their own efforts to help educate and illustrate both the risks and the benefits of AI applied to business problems. So as I said before, sometimes there's nuance in how people should be using AI to make sure that they really get the benefit out that they're looking for. And that's a role for those AI experts and data scientists to play, is help the organization and those cross-functional experts involved in the process really understand both the benefit side, but also some of the risks and the watch-outs, and make sure that you're kind of planning ahead for those and that you're thinking about that throughout your journey. And then finally, I would encourage data scientists and folks working in AI to really make sure that they are tracking metrics on how the AI tools are being used and the outcomes of using those tools. So are the benefits being realized? Is there any sort of misuse or unintended consequences showing up in the data? But you won't know those things unless you're tracking. And so that's something you need to be integrating into all of your work, is to make sure that you're building those metrics so that you can actually understand the outcomes and create that feedback loop in case there are things that are missed or something turns out to be a little bit different than expected. So those are the things I would suggest to folks that are in data science and AI spaces today.
Excellent. Thank you, Meghan. It's like with everything in life, right? It's not one size fits all, and you need to make sure that you kind of go through the proper steps to make sure that you're not, overkilling with the AI component. So now, what advice can we give people to stay up to date, given how quickly the landscape is changing? I've been in technology for my whole life, and what's always amazed me is the rate of how quickly things change and evolve. Now, when you add the complexity of, AI kind of as another tool in the basket, so to speak, how do you manage that? How do you stay current and not get susceptible to the buzz, right? Like, oh, we need to do this because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So first off, no single person can possibly stay up with everything. The space is too broad. It's changing too quickly. So I myself struggle to stay up to date, as do lots of other folks that I know who are operating in the space. So I wouldn't sort of put the burden on yourself to feel like you need to or should know everything all the time about what's happening, because that's just unrealistic. However, there are really three things that I recommend to folks to help them stay up to date. So one is to keep up with industry news and competitor news that is relevant, especially in the geographies that you operate within. So for myself, I do this in part through podcasts like this, through articles, and then following vetted experts, right? Especially in this buzz and sort of hype cycle around AI, many people are calling themselves AI experts. Only some of those folks really have that deep expertise and have sort of been through this many times before, right? And have kind of those war wounds to show for what worked and what didn't. So really looking for those vetted experts to look to help keep you informed. So that's one. Secondly, not all organizations have AI expertise in-house. And depending upon where you are and your AI strategy, you may not need to have full-time in-house AI experts. However, I would encourage you to bring them in when needed. So either on a specific topic within AI or perhaps for initial education sessions for your executive team and board, right? So if you're just trying to wrap your arms around how should we think about AI for our organization, what's relevant to us, you might want to bring in someone from the outside to help you have that conversation, to think through what are some of the benefits and opportunities for your specific organization. Another example could be in that governance policy, right? So if you say, okay, we know lots of folks are using AI tools, we need to have some sort of guardrails, but we don't know where to get started. And again, we don't expect to sort of hire an AI expert tomorrow. That's another place where you can get some outside expertise to help you to say, what should those guardrails look like? And should, depending upon the risk tolerance of the organization, how sort of light and high level should they be versus more heavy-handed and stringent, right? And that's going to vary, obviously, by organization. So that's number 2, is to bring in outside experts as you need them, if you don't have the right expertise in-house already today. And then third, for myself, I've really found that continuing to learn from a really wide range of industries and topics has been helpful to myself, frankly, throughout my career. And this is not AI specific, but more that by sort of staying open and continuing to absorb information from industries and functions outside of my areas of expertise, I found that it really helps me kind of connect the dots and have a more systems thinking approach to solve problems, right? So being able to kind of say, okay, this is happening in healthcare, and that might be related to something that I'm doing in telecommunications, right? And sort of helping kind of connect those dots and look for places where how others have solved problems might be helpful to how you want to be able to solve problems. So that would be the third thing, is just continuing to learn as much as you can kind of across a really wide space.
Well, Meghan, thank you. Unfortunately, we're coming to wrapping things up here. So I have one last question for you. What are the common pitfalls, and how can you see the rewards sooner rather than later?
Yeah, so I thought of kind of 4 main ones that I've seen come up many times. So first is one that I referred to earlier, which is starting with the solution, right? AI in this case, rather than starting with the problem. So, right, instead, really start with your business strategy and the problems you need to solve and work from there. So that's one pitfall. Second is taking on too much at the start. A second pitfall is taking on too much at the start. So start small. You could start with crafting your AI governance policy if you don't have one. If you do, perhaps start with a low risk problem, one that you can do some experimentation with without exposing your organization to a lot of risk. So, for example, if you have a lot of internal presentation decks, you could try using a generative AI tool that does slide generation or presentation deck generation and see if that provides some better content and saves time for your organization. A third pitfall is to make sure that you're really bringing together all those different experts, right? So the pitfall is not doing that, of really sort of putting things towards maybe your AI expert or your IT organization and expecting that they'll be able to solve everything themselves. What you really need is that cross-functional expertise at that table, right? From legal and compliance to information security and architecture, and of course your business leaders, to really make sure that you're thinking through both the problems and the solutions in a way that's more likely to be successful. And then fourth and final pitfall is that folks don't measure, right? So as I alluded to before, you want to make sure that you really have those metrics thought through of how will you know if the outcomes you intended to achieve are being achieved? And are there any unintended consequences or issues that pop up? And the only way to know that, of course, is to be capturing the data and have those metrics to help show you that. So that would be the last, is to make sure that you're measuring things as well.
Right. So Meghan, as we leave the audience, if you had to leave them with one power word, what word would you leave them with?
I would say learn. This is, right, such a unique kind of moment in time. There's so much happening and changing. I think really to just start learning really anywhere, right? If it's how you want to be able to use some of these tools in your personal life or something at work, but really just experimenting and learning is what I would encourage folks to do.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Meghan. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks for joining us on the AI to Z podcast with Anna Frazzetto. If you found value in today's episode, consider following for more insightful STEM discussions. We'll be back with another deep dive. Until then.